Welcome to Dugout Chatter. We are going to see how America's pastime has shaped generations of young men and women into the determined people they are today.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Dugout Chatter. And today's guest is going to be a little bit different for me. It's not someone that I've formerly played baseball with or know. The intro for you is pretty long. Sasha was a very devoted athlete growing up, played a lot of sports, a lot more than just me. She was a VP at Disney, an author. Welcome to Dugout Chatter, Sasha, and thank you for taking the time.
Of course, thanks for having me. And, just because we haven't played baseball together in the past, I'm not ruling it out for the future.
Oh, yeah. I'll see you in Sunday League then.
Hot dog, I love it.
So what was one of your favorite sports growing up then?
So, I was one of those kids who started playing sports as soon as I could walk, and then I just kept playing. And so, I did everything from snow skiing to water skiing to soccer to softball to I did volleyball, basketball, and track in high school. I played those sort of at the highest level. So just sort of anything that was active and mostly outside, I just loved to do.
Yeah, I was kind of the same way. I'm the youngest of four, so a lot of those sports we just played in the front yard, but we were all baseball players. We all ended up going through the same high school, playing for the same high school coach. So one thing I kind of wish I did more of was play other sports, because when I got older and I hung up my cleats from playing baseball, I messed around with boxing. I played ultimate frisbee with my friends, and I was like, man, all these other sports would have made me such a better baseball player.
Yeah, I guess that what I'd say to that is that it's not too late, that I am constantly talking to people who take things up. I just started training for my very first triathlon, and
wow.
It's wild. And the more people I talk to, the more people are like, look, I came to this really late. Like, I just decided that it was something I wanted to do, so I started doing it. And it's just, that's one of the things that I found the most fun about my podcast, is just that I'm meeting all of these people who are doing really cool things.
So tell me a little bit more about your podcast, because I was looking through some of your guest list, and it's insane. Like, you're by where a bunch of retired athletes are in Scottsdale, Arizona. So how do you get to booking them? When I saw Bruce Chen, I was like, damn.
I know, it's so fun. Oh, I can introduce you. He plays on my volleyball team now. So I started this podcast almost a year ago now, and it's called Sports Will Save Us All. And it sort of started in this place of, what is something that really brings us together, that people don't care, what your politics are or what your background is, where you come from. Like, anybody can get together. And if they're rooting for the same team, like, that's your brother, that's your sister for that time. And that's really what I was looking for, was this idea of sports bringing us together and giving us this common language. And so I started just reaching out. I am lucky to have a lot of friends who have played sports at really high levels. A really close friend of mine was an Olympic bobsledder. She's awesome. She did track and field for University of Nebraska. So she came on the show. Her name is Amanda Morley. Another friend was an All-American diver for UCLA. So she came on the show early. And then it was just this wild experience of, like, I would reach out to somebody, just pie in the sky, and they would say, yes, sure, I'll come on your podcast. So I was like, why?
Yeah.
But I never asked them that.
Yeah, don't ask them why.
So Bruce Chen, actually, who you mentioned, he played 400 games in the majors. He played for 17 seasons.
He was on some of those really good Braves teams in the 90s.
Exactly right. Yeah, no, he plays softball with this friend of mine who was a professional softball player. So her name is Becca, now Ambrose. And so she one day was playing softball, and this guy was pitching, and it was slow pitch, it wasn't even fast pitch softball. And suddenly he fields the ball and just wings it to first. And she looked at him and she was like, wait, who is that guy?
Yeah.
And she knew immediately. She said, there's just a difference when somebody has played at the highest level, they can show you in a split second. And so she started talking to him. And then when I launched my podcast, I said, hey, will you make an introduction? She did. And he came on the show, and what an interesting guy. Such a great story.
Yeah. And what you're saying, when those people do something different, I was just had someone on the podcast. He's more from New York, New Jersey area, and he played against I would say Marcus Stroman. And when you see those guys in person, I played against Jonathan India, a bunch of like other high draft picks down here. And like when you watch them play, it's like, wow, I can't do that. Like some
That's
of them,
it, right?
It's just, they have this freak ability. It's insane. Like I've seen guys like wrap their arms around a fastball, like in the left-handed batter's box. I'm like, dude, you're right-handed. You aren't supposed to be able to take me to left center on that.
Well, and I think too that sometimes when you're watching a professional game and everybody is that good, that there's no, there's no way to compare who's incredibly good because they're all incredibly good. Whereas when you see somebody sort of out in the natural environment, suddenly
that's not named Shohei Ohtani. Pretty much.
Yeah. So it's a wild experience. So that's what I've been doing with the podcast, is just reaching out to people who I think would have interesting stories. I started thinking about skydiving recently and was like, I wonder if there's a skydiving team. Sure enough, Arizona has this like national champion skydiving team. And so they all came in and were on the show, like such interesting people out there doing cool things.
So out of all those sports you played growing up, did you have a favorite?
Yeah, it's hard to choose just one, isn't it?
For me, it wasn't.
No.
For me,
I was on a swim team when I was really young that I just loved. I mean, not really, through like age 12 or something, where I was pretty competitive and our team was really good and all my best friends were on it. So I loved that. As I got older, my basketball team was extraordinary. We won the state championship my junior year of high school. And so that was, that's just an experience that so few people get to have, to be on a team, that is that good. So that was incredible. But volleyball is probably my favorite sport to play, which is why I still play it now. But I also loved sprinting, and I loved the 4x1 relay and the 4x4 relay because they gave me like that combination of, an individual sport, where you're out there by yourself, but you also have a team, right? So you get to celebrate together or, be bummed together if you drop the baton or something, unthinkable. So that was a roundabout way of saying I like a lot of sports.
Yeah. And one thing I'm big on with my podcast too is like baseball teaches you so many lessons into going into life and adulthood, dealing with failure, learning what your strengths and weaknesses are. And it seems like sports did that for you in a different sense, like just outside of baseball. It took you to writing a book, to starting a podcast, and it probably helped launch you into college and, go on from life from there.
Yeah, an interesting thing about the college thing was that, I'd always planned on going to college on a sports scholarship. And so, I had some offers from some smaller schools, and that was always my plan. And then sort of at the 11th hour, University of San Francisco came in with this academic offer, which meant I could study abroad my junior year. So I didn't play sports in college. And it changed everything, that I had spent all of my time, over the last 4 years playing sports. If I was the sports season during the school year were volleyball, basketball, track. And then over the summer we would have camps and we would have, all these things. So then to go to college, it was almost like this awakening of like, wait, who am I if I'm not part of a sports team? Right. Like that's a weird transition.
Yeah, my brother, who I had on the podcast, his name's Ryan, and he said it hit him so hard. Like, he couldn't watch baseball. He was nervous about introducing the game to his kid. It's weird how it leaves a bitter taste in your mouth.
Yeah, I think that sometimes knowing that it's going to end, that being an adult, being on the other side of it is, can be a little bit, it has a little tinge of sadness to it in addition to all of the joy that sports bring us. And I've found that a lot with the guests on Sports Will Save Us All, that everybody talks about how much they learned from the sports and how much sports contributed to their lives and, taught them this great work ethic and, how to be a teammate and how to support each other and all these things. But, all of the ones who are truly retired have that, wistfulness in their voice because they do bring something really, really special to our lives, I think.
Yeah. So what's one of the best stories you've heard on your podcast?
Boy, there have been so many good ones. We're in the middle right now. So for August has been baseball month on the podcast. And the first guest for baseball month is this guy named Anthony Phillips. He's from South Africa. He was brought over to play in the United States when he was 16, like so many of these kids are. He was brought over to training camp. And his dad's name is Alan Phillips. He was the oldest player ever on an Olympic baseball roster at age 44. So played for South Africa. So, and Anthony's brother also played. He played for the Brewers. His name is Jonathan Phillips. So he comes from this just incredibly like baseball royalty family from South Africa, but baseball's not big there. So like his parents are more recognized for being badminton champions in the country of South Africa than they are for, all of this baseball, just incredible accomplishment, which, that just blows me away. And Anthony now has opened, or he's part owner in this badminton club here. So now he's competing at this really high level in badminton, which I think is just so cool, to take like your skills and just keep going.
Yeah. So going back to when you were in college and you weren't playing any sports, is that kind of what led you to like starting to write children's books? Was kind of like that outlet from not playing sports anymore?
I had always been a writer. So I actually, from college, I became a television writer and producer. And then I got the job working for Disney. You mentioned that I was a VP at Disney. So Disney called and I went down and I moved to LA and I worked for Disney for years. And that was just incredible, super, super fun. But then when my husband and I were going to start a family, lifestyle just wasn't conducive, right? Like it was lots of travel. Lots of nice
what was your day-to-day life like working for Disney?
I was the vice president of national publicity. So I worked on all of the film releases. Actually, I worked on half the film releases. There was another VP and we split the titles. So I worked on movies like Finding Nemo and but it was also during the time of Pirates of the Caribbean coming out. So like that one. So
it was more like around 2005, that era.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but I also got to work on Remember the Titans and so many great, The Rookie.
Oh yeah. I was just going to say that guy who was a teacher and made it back to the major leagues.
Yeah. So here's what's funny about that too, is that I, interviewed. So for my August 15th episode, I interviewed the actor who was playing Ricky Hill in this new movie called The Hill, right? Okay. So he plays Ricky Hill in this movie, and Dennis Quaid in the movie plays his dad. So it's another baseball movie, with Dennis Quaid. Like it feels like it's just all come full circle. So and then the director, I interviewed the director of that movie, and that will be on August 22nd. So if anybody's looking for that one So I'm bringing sort of my love of sports, my love of movies together into this, fun way.
And then your kids get to grow up with all that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's such a funny thing with kids though, because like looking back when you were a kid, like your parents are just your parents. Like it's just what they do. And so, when they, meet somebody who was a professional athlete or they, see me do my thing, it doesn't impress them.
Yeah. My brother actually, he was at a game and he would not shake Vladimir Guerrero's hand.
What?
I don't know. He was a kid and got stage fright.
Oh, sweet boy.
It's back. I don't even know how old I was back then. But anyway, oh, sorry. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, so you're the youngest, you said, of these?
Yeah, I'm the youngest of four.
How much is the spread? Like, how much older is your oldest brother?
He's born in 89, so he's 34.
Okay.
And you're 25.
Okay, yeah. So, it's pretty big. It's pretty big spread. Like, that was a long time for your parents to be living the baseball life.
Oh, yeah. They came to like all of our games between all four of us. And like, I never actually got to play with any of my brothers because like I was just like, they were just older than me.
Oh my gosh. So they watched a lot of baseball, your parents.
Oh my God, they did. And we all played for the same high school program. So from 2003 to 2016, we were all playing for the same high school. Like, so they had a Giffen every year.
That's funny. Among the four of you, who was the best player?
That's kind of tough because, like, my brother Braden, I think I'd say him because he was the most decorated, and he played for SUNY Canton. He was an All-American his sophomore year. So he went from being the defensive player of the year to the offensive player of the year. He went from hitting 240 to 350.
Wow.
Like he had a huge jump. And you want to know the one piece of advice his coach told him, and he told us on my podcast? He said, look for shit up. That changed. Huh?
What was the piece of advice?
Look for shit up.
What does that mean?
Just look for stuff up in the zone. That's all he told him. And then next thing you know, he got a lot stronger too. He started hitting balls out of the yard because if it's on the ground, like if it's a low pitch, you're just going to beat it into the ground. So like that change in approach took him from a 250 hitter to a 350 hitter.
I mean, but also what took him was an incredible amount of hard work, an incredible amount of dedication, a willingness to like incorporate advice that a coach has given you. You know, I mean, there are so many factors that go into making somebody great, right? Yeah,
it's just funny like how that one thing in passing though can just put it all together. Yeah,
it is true. It is true.
And my brother Ryan, like he had a really good career. I mean, he just got cut short because he had a slap tear in his labrum. So he kind of wasn't able to come back the same after that. My brother Kieran, he didn't have interest in. He had more interest in other things besides baseball, and then me, I just couldn't find anywhere to go to college. I didn't want to move away, take on student debt, and I probably wasn't going to get drafted, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life yet. So it was just best for me to like hang him up then after high school.
Well, so what was that transition like for you?
Oh, it was terrible. Because like I was 18, like all my friends moved away. I just stopped playing baseball. So it was just like oddly secluding. And then like I start going to college, my car gets stolen. I'm taking care of like my childhood dog. She gets cancer and dies. So like all this is going on. And then like eventually my mom listened to something on the radio one day about the Connecticut School of Broadcasting down here. Then I just ended up doing that and then going into like an audio visual career.
Oh my gosh, it sounds like the worst kind of country song.
Yeah. It was worse than my truck breaking down.
Seriously. Oh, that's...
It taught me a lot of growing up quick, but it threw me into other interests too. Like I started playing the guitar, started getting into like videography and editing more. Like it took me 7 years to get back to baseball.
Yeah. Yeah. It can take a while to get that sting off and to find sort of a place again, I think.
Yeah. You're just not sure what to do, but eventually I figured it out.
Yeah, no, what lessons have you taken from baseball into what you're doing now? Like, how has that influenced your life going forward?
Big thing's time management. One thing my brothers and coaches always told me growing up, if you're on time, you're late.
Mm-hmm.
And just working hard. Cause like one thing in baseball, it's a game so built on failure. It's like, you have to learn how to fail gracefully, but it also teaches you, like, I always refer to the Derek Jeter quote, just cause someone's better than you, it's not an excuse for them to work harder than you. So it's just like constant working, grinding, and figuring out what it takes to get better is what it really taught me. And like now in my adult life, I'm like, wow, I learned all this from playing baseball, like a lot of it.
Baseball is such an interesting thing for me because there are a lot of sports that you can make up for mistakes or even just not being very good with hustle. You know, we have somebody actually on our volleyball team who was a lacrosse player, and he would describe himself all the time as all hustle, no skill. And with baseball, like that just doesn't work. Like, because, you know, there's such a focus on you each play if you're involved in the play, right? That with basketball, if, you know, you turn the ball over, you can chase after it, you can make an immediate new play. Whereas with baseball, the pressure that's involved, I just can't even imagine it.
Yeah, it's a game that's a lot of anticipation, you know, because like I hate when people say it's not a physically demanding sport because you play it more games than anyone else. But also, like, I feel like where the yips gets to a lot of people is like you're waiting for the ball the whole time, and some people don't know how to handle that anticipation.
Right, of course. I mean, because it just your anticipation and your pressure just builds up and up and up and up and up. That it's easy to catastrophize and not perform when the time comes.
Yeah, and then one bad game, you're doubting your entire ability. Mm-hmm. Like Tom Seaver even said, like it's more about like who's the sharpest between the ears, because like everyone in the major league level, physically they're really the same for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, you have to be playing at that high level. It's interesting though, because, you know, one of the things that I've learned talking to some of these pro baseball players is it's this strange system that, you know, other sports, I suppose, have it a little bit, but not on the level of baseball, of having all of these minor league teams going down that they can pull talent from, which I would imagine that as a player in the majors, that you would just constantly not only be doubting yourself or feeling insecure about your own ability, but then worried that you're going to be knocked down, that you finally get your chance, you make it to the show and then, you get knocked down again.
Someone's always coming for your job.
Right.
Always.
Right. And there's plenty of people. There's plenty of people to fill out, Yeah. So.
Yeah, playing one day in the big leagues is quite an accomplishment, is how I look at it.
Right.
But anyway, now that you have children, has that changed your view on athletics at all?
I mean, I think having children changes your view on absolutely everything, including sports.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways, one of them is coaching, that I had some terrible coaches growing up. I mean, like anybody who plays a lot of sports, like you're going to have great coaches and you're going to have not great coaches. And when I was a kid, I would get mad and I would get frustrated, but I didn't really think about it in sort of this global sense. And, now when my kids have a coach that I don't agree with, or, I don't think is a great coach, it's a very different sensation for me, to think about, let the coach do their thing. That's their job. I'm the mom. That's, I'm not getting involved with this. So that's been one of the things. The other part of it is all of these parents who I think are trying very hard to live vicariously through their kids.
Yeah.
And that frustrates me to no end, because I think that we have to, as parents, let that go and let our kids have their own sports experience, whatever that looks like. And ultimately, they are going to learn all these things from sports. But the reason why we play sports, and I will say this till I'm blue in the face, is to have fun. Yeah. Sports are to have fun. And if we're not letting our kids have fun, then we're doing it wrong.
Yeah, because even my brother said, he doesn't want to get too involved with his sons, playing sport or playing baseball, because he's seen, kids at, especially that young of an age. His son's 7. They'll get overworked, they'll get burnt out, and then they'll hate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's all of this, all of these studies that show that kids tend to play sports now until they're 11 or 12, and then they quit. And they quit for good because they get burned out. We're specializing these kids starting at age 8. And, of course, you're going to hate anything you've done for years starting at age 8. Spread it out. Let them have seasons.
Yeah, and parents have unrealistic expectations. It's your son's not going to get drafted tomorrow. It's it takes a lot of time in developing. And like you said, just first off, just have fun. It's a game. It's a game. Just have fun with it.
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting. I had another guest for Baseball Month on Sports Will Save Us All, and he played baseball for Arizona State University. He actually played for Northwestern also, but then he finished at Arizona State, and then he was drafted, or actually he may have gone. I can't quite remember his story now, but Charlie Williamson is his name, but he played in the minors for a few years, and now he coaches with the Positive Coaching Alliance. And he really emphasizes that to everybody he talks to, is that the reason why he went as far as he went in baseball was because it was fun for him. And then when it wasn't fun anymore, then he quit playing, because what's the point of doing it if it's not fun?
Exactly. So what sports are your kids starting to take to?
So my oldest son has played, he is the most like me when it comes to sports. So he's played everything. He's played soccer and football, and basketball was his favorite, definitely. My second son loves rock climbing. He's very, very into rock climbing. They're all into snow sports. So my oldest snowboards, my second one skis. My youngest daughter does volleyball. She's played volleyball for a long time, but she's actually now getting into theater. So we'll see. I don't know. It's just letting them find their own path.
Yeah. And my oldest brother, he said his son got into baseball because he saw my Ryan was really good. He saw him turn a nasty double play and scoop a ball out of the dirt. Then he's like, "Oh, I want to be like my dad."
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was really cool to see. It
was funny. We played sand volleyball with our boys over the summer when we were in San Clemente, and my husband and I play volleyball together, and we just totally schooled them. And I could see they didn't like it, but they were kind of impressed.
I don't take it easy on my nephew.
Yeah. I think that's good.
Yeah. It's obviously I don't try to go too far, but it's I want you to earn that victory is how I feel about it.
And they know the difference. They know the difference.
Yeah,
between
the kids can see through it. And especially like when I coach, the kids know, they know a lot more than you give them credit for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's true all the way around, especially now. Yeah, kids are much savvier than we were when we were kids.
Yeah, and like when I coached high school, like when I liked pitching against my kids because I still play in Sunday men's league and still like to like keep in shape playing ball. Like I'm like, I want to show you guys I still got it because like I want them to think like I want to be better than my coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
were you a pitcher?
I was a pitcher, yes. I did some middle infield and catching. So like in high school, second base and pitching were like my primaries.
Nice.
Yeah, my junior year, I had a good year on the mound. And my senior year, I got moved to playing more second. And I like that more because I liked hitting more. Get in the lineup every day.
Right. Yeah. No, and you kind of have to make that choice in baseball.
Yeah. So what's one of the top moments from like your athletic career? Something that still sticks to you to this day that you can remember it like very clearly.
You know, probably the one that I remember the most clearly, and probably because it's the most visceral, was when I went sub 60 in the 400 in track. For anybody who doesn't know the 400 in track, it's one time around the track, and it's the worst race out there. It's absolutely horrible. You feel like you are going to die at the end. Most people throw up when they go hard. And I had been chasing this sub 60 the entire season. And when I got it, it was a big deal. And I really, really remember it. Like I remember how I felt when it happened. But I also, I had a lot of really good, like I said, we won the state championship one year in basketball, which that was incredible. I come from a small town, and it really was just.
Oh yeah, you went from a small town to LA. That must have been quite the culture shock.
Yeah, no, well, and I went via San Francisco, so I went, Silverton, Oregon to San Francisco to LA, and what's funny about that? What I remember most about going from Silverton to San Francisco were the luxury cars that, when you grow up in a small town, everybody in Silverton had, Subarus or minivans or F-150 trucks, right? That was everybody in the town. And then I got to San Francisco and, I had seen BMWs and Mercedes, but everywhere. I mean, like the streets were full of all of these luxury cars. And I remember that was the biggest moment of like, wow, we're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah. Like down here in West Palm, it's kind of like that, like more metropolitan, more city. But when I go to visit my brother, it's weird if you don't see a pickup truck.
Yeah. Where does he live?
He lives in Fort Myers, that one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's a paramedic out there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Baseball took him to, after he left baseball, he had a better taste towards it too. Ended up just finding his way and became a paramedic.
That's cool.
A lot of us had better takes after.
Where did his come from, do you think?
He was just in an awkward spot because like he killed it his sophomore year, but like he was at like a small D2 up north, but just didn't get any looks after that to go play at a bigger school. And he was just tired of racking up debt.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, no, I think that it can be a cruel mistress for sure. I mean, chasing it all the time and trying to like get into that next level.
Yeah, it's just like all we thought about every day. And I'm sure our parents knew too, going to all of our games.
Well, it also just starts to feel like you've put in all of this time.
Yeah, you feel cheated at the end.
All of your eggs in that basket.
That's why it is. You just feel cheated. And like, I remember it was weird for me watching guys my age in the big leagues. I'm like, what? Like kids born in like 2004 are in the major leagues now, like 2003. This isn't right.
It's just wild. So on Sports with Sam Asal, I interviewed this guy named Mike Pulaski, who he is now the color commentator for the Cal State Golden Bears for their football. And he's played in every professional football league. So he played NFL, then he played XFL and arena football. And I mean, he's just done everything. And he was talking about being recruited for college when he was 17 or 18. And I said, when you look now at these kids who are playing for Cal, who are the same age that you are when you got recruited, I said, don't they look like babies? And he was like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
He said, I knew nothing. I was a child and I thought I knew everything.
God, I had kids calling me old. I'm like, what?
It happens fast. I'll tell you.
I know. I'm like, dude, I'm only 25.
Yeah, but you look like a grown up to those, especially like high school sophomores.
Oh, I know. And God, it's changed. The baseball's changed a lot at that level too. Because nowadays,
Has it really? How has it changed?
Because when I was growing up, like especially statistically, like, I'm sure you know, like how baseball is like so overly stat driven, it just drives me nuts. Yeah. But like kids now, they're like, oh, like I wonder what my launch angle or exit velo was. Or I was like, bro, who cares? Like, did you guys win today or not? Like, did your swing feel right? Like, you can't rely on like numbers and technology. You gotta know how your body feels. You gotta know how your swing feels. You gotta know how to make an adjustment like during the bat, pitch to pitch.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, I hadn't really thought about that, about how the technology, it can take over a little bit rather than, and lose that feel that's so necessary.
Because it's like if you're arguing over something with somebody, how quick are you to Google it instead of just know it off the top of your head? It's kind of like that.
Right. Or talk it out, like figure out, I don't know, what are the possibilities here, instead of just like going straight to the answer. Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yeah. Well, before we get wrapping up, is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I guess that I think that your audience and my audience are very, very similar. I really appreciate you having me on. My podcast, like I said, is called Sports Will Save Us All. I talk to all sorts of people from the sports world. And, like I said, I'm now getting into this sort of movie angle too. So I'm launching a new feature that is going to air, I think, one Friday a month, where I'm actually going to go to the movies with a friend of mine. So the inaugural one is Gran Turismo. And, so I'm just looking for excuses to go see movies and talk about them on my podcast. But it's a ton of fun. I would love to have anybody there. And like I said, it's called Sports Will Save Us All.
Yeah, everyone make sure to check that out. A lot of great stuff, a lot of great athletes. And like you said, I feel like we're doing the same thing just from different angles. Essentially, just like how sports shapes you, like past childhood into adulthood.
Right. No, absolutely. What do you think so far about hosting a podcast? Do you like it?
Yeah, I really do. Like, what's funny is I started it like 4 years ago. Like I was right out of high school. And then I fell into work heavily. I started working like 2 or 3 jobs at some time. Like at one point I was a camera operator for like a polo company, and then working like part-time at a grocery store, and I just couldn't keep up with it. And then eventually I was like, baseball sucks. And I had that bitter taste towards it. But then 7 years later, I'm 25, one of my buddies just sends me a text. He's like, hey, there's a men's league out. Do you want to play? I'm like, dude, I don't know. Not really. He's like, it's free. Then I'm like, all right, fine. Who's going to turn down free baseball? Then, I'm back in the lab. I'm like, oh, I got the itch again. Then
what was that like? Was it like riding a bike, or did you take a while to get back into it?
It was kind of like both, obviously I still knew it all from playing since I was 5, but it was just conditioning your body. Cause what I always say is you're in shape or you're in the baseball shape. Because you just use your muscles so differently. The first day after I swung, my upper back was just it was shot. And I always had this phantom pain in my elbow because throwing a ball, gripping it, and throwing it downhill is such an unnatural motion. It's so hard on your shoulder too. I couldn't. It took me about, I want to say, 2 years to start being able to throw again. Because also you're not playing every day, so your body's really not used to it. But then playing in that men's league ended up getting me to coach high school baseball. So it's funny how it all comes full circle. Then eventually I came to you know what? I still really appreciate so much about baseball, and I want to hear from people, see what they got out of it too. And one thing my mom said is you can learn from the Derek Jeters of the world, but it's another thing to learn from the everyday Joe.
Well, and there are a lot more everyday Joes than there are Derek Jeters, right? Yeah. And I think recognizing that sports are incredibly valuable on a day-to-day basis to so many people is, that's what it's all about. That you go out to the Little League fields on a Saturday morning and, that's where you can find your inspiration, right? Yeah.
My nephew's really fallen in love with the baseball, and my brother watched the Captain documentary with him, and for the date of recording last weekend, the Yankees and Marlins were in town, and he was so fired up. So he's like, Dad, the Yankees are winning. It's just so great to see that. It's just man, this is why you love the game.
Yeah, we talk about it in my family that it's the time machine, right? That like,
oh my God,
when you it's a kid like that, and suddenly you're just taken right back there, which is it's a little bit of magic.
Yeah, and even with my brother, he's like, man, I haven't thought about my high school baseball career in a while because that was almost like 13 years ago.
Yep.
But yeah,
so it's kind of fun to bring it back around.
Yeah. But Sasha, thank you so much for coming on. Everyone check out her podcast. A lot of great guests, a lot of interesting stories. Your book, your website, all that. Like, if you want to send me any links, I'll put them in the show description too for this episode.
Perfect. Yeah, the main one is sportswillsaveusall.com, and you can find everything there. You can find we didn't even talk about my children's books that I've written, but those are on there. And
yeah, there's a lot to go through. Hey, well, maybe we'll have to have you back for part 2. Everyone's always welcome back.
I love it, and I'll get you on Sports Will Save Us All too. I would love to have you.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it because I can go in so much deeper on baseball.
Oh, sweet. Well, hey, we have all the time in the world.
All right, thank you guys. See you next week.